Great morning. You guys come on in. Come on in. Come on in. Great morning. How are you, April? Hey, Charla. Thank you, April, for sharing. Grand Rising, Sissy. You guys come on in. Come on in. Make sure you let me know who's here, where you're tuning in from, and that you share. Share the live. Share the live. Hey, Cherie, how are you, gorgeous? Good to see you. Good to see you. Oh, she's going to start acting up. Y'all come on in. Come on in. Hey, Brother John, how are you? Y'all come on in. Come on in. Come on in. You all, hey, Jackie. I hope you're feeling better, gorgeous. Listen, this word is a word of liberation. That's what I'm going to call it. It's a word of liberation. It's a word of liberation. So you guys come on in. Come on in. Come on in. Okay. Mm. We're in a season where God is trying to launch us. But in order for us to launch, we have to first cut the tethers. Cut the tethers. Now, tethers have multiple roles, okay? Tethers have multiple roles. Tethers are used to hold something securely or someone securely. So tethers have a role as in creating safety, but tethers also restrict, okay? So tethers create safety, but they also restrict. Hey, Kareem. Many of us have been tethered to things that created safety, right? They created safety, but they also restricted movement. My God. Ha! Many of us have been tethered to things that created safety, but they also restricted movement. They restricted your movement. They restricted your ability to flow freely. Angel number 111. And so we've held on to the tethers because the tethers provide us with safety, a sense of security. This is the problem. When God is trying to launch you into the deep, he can't launch you while you're tethered to something designed to restrict your movement. I know in your mind, this is your safety zone. This is designed to keep you safe, but it is restricting your movement. And in restricting your movement, it restricts God's ability to get you to destiny. It's time to cut the tethers. See, in the past, our safety has been determined by our being tethered to something, to someone, to some place. But God says that your true, listen, that your true ability to get to where He's taking you is going to require you to be untethered so that you can get to where He's taking you. Hold on, y'all. I didn't even share. Hold on. Let me share. Let me share. Let me share. Let me share. I don't know about you, but I've found myself tethered in places, tethered in situations, tethered to people. And when it was time for the tether to be cut, it was challenging for me because tethering represented security. So when you're tethered, you know that even when you venture off, you can always come back. You've got a direct line back to where you're tethered, back to the place that represents your security, back to the person or the people that represent security for you. Tethers only allow you to go so far, but then you're still connected and you can come back. What happens when God says that it's time to cut the tethers? When it's time to cut the tethers, that means that it's time for you to go beyond the confines that you have normally been operating in. It's time to cut the tethers. Does cutting the tethers mean that you're not still connected, that there's not still relationship, that there's not still a space for that place, those people, that situation? No, it doesn't. It simply means that it's not one that's determined by the connection or by the tether. It is one that is determined by choice. See, when you're tethered to something or someone or some place, then you can't go beyond a certain way. You can't go beyond it. And you always have to return back to it. But when you're no longer tethered, your return is a choice. When you're no longer tethered, your return is a choice. So what we do is, as human beings, in order to maintain our security, is we want to be tethered. We want to be tethered to people. We want to be tethered to places. We want to be tethered to situations. We want to be tethered because the tether represents security. So we want to be tethered, connected. We want to stay plugged. That tether keeps us connected, right? But can you still be connected and not be tethered? See, being connected and not being tethered by obligation, by requirement, by a wire, by something that holds you to them is more powerful than the tether because it's a choice. God, in His infinite wisdom, gives us choice. The thing about choice is this: there is a freedom and a liberty that comes with choice, which means we get to choose the nature of our relationship, the nature of our connection, the nature of how closely we are, how much leeway, how much room. We get to determine that. So my question to you is, what has you tethered? What has you tethered? What are you tethered to? Are you tethered to your past? Are you maintaining tethers and connections that keep you glued to, tied to your past? Past hurts, past traumas, past disappointments, past joys, past freedoms, past accomplishments. Are you tethered to your past? So much so that you're limited to a certain range of motion, so you can never get beyond your past because you're still tethered to it. The thing about when you are tethered to something is it limits your range of motion. Limits your range of motion. Are you tethered to the thought processes of the past? Are you tethered to your saboteurs? What are you tethered to? It's time to cut the tethers. In order for a rocket to take off, those things tethered to it, those tethers connected to it, holding it on the ground, must be released. Once the tethers are released, then the rocket can fully launch. Until then, it's only allowed to go up so far. So in order for it to get its maximum blast off, the tethers have to be disconnected. God has you in a place where he's launching you. But right now you're tethered. Right now you're tethered. I get it. I understand that the tethers provided you with a sense of safety in the past. I get that. But baby, can I just tell you this? Those same tethers that created a sense of safety in the past will create limitation in your present and your future. Those things that you needed in the past, you don't need the same way in your present and your future, and yet you're still tethered to it. It's time to cut the tethers. I remember there was a time in my life when I would be tethered to a prophetic word. If I released a prophetic word to someone, I would feel tethered to that word, like I am obligated to make sure that this word manifests. And God had to show me that's not your job. Your job is to release what I say and release that. You don't have to hold on to it. You're not responsible for it. You're not accountable for it. You're accountable for releasing the word, but that's it. Once you release the word, then it is that your part is done. It's done. And so when you understand that, you stop feeling obligated to make things happen, obligated to make sure that people get it or understand. You stop feeling obligated to make sure that you nurture that word. It's no longer your word to nurture. It was your word to release, but it's not your word to nurture. When you receive a prophetic word, that word comes to you, and it is your job as the recipient to see what to do with the word. Once you do that, that's you. You got to do that. So we often will get a prophetic word, and then when it doesn't happen, when we think it should happen or the way we think it should happen, and it doesn't seem to match, right? We begin to think, well, something must have been wrong with the word or the one who gave the word. I remember this so clearly. I remember God speaking to me and giving me a word for a woman. And a part of the word was, you're getting ready to meet the man who will be the husband that you need, right? And I remember her daughter said, Mom, Daddy needs to meet her. And I'm thinking, Lord, what in the world? And I'm confused. See, sometimes God will give me a word and the word confuses me. I'm like, Lord, but she already got a husband. Like, what are you talking about? But literally what I've watched is over the years, this man become everything that she needed to support her, encourage her, ride with her, cover her. I don't know what I was going on before, but what I know is what I began to see was this man's presence even in a greater magnitude. So he became the man that she needed, loving her the way that she needed. But in that moment, I'm like, well, God, I know I heard you say, but this isn't making sense. Everything that God says is not literal. Everything that God says is not, they are levels to the understanding, right? So I found myself questioning, God, well, was that even you? Because I had no reason to say that. And it made me hesitant to say anything to people when it came to relationship, or like, it had me hesitant. I was like, well, I don't want to say nothing because I don't want to be wrong. But when I see things in the spirit, I see it in the spirit. So in the spirit, it may not look exactly like in the natural, but there's a spiritual meaning to it. I remember one time, oh God, I was prophesying and I was talking about your husband, your husband, your husband. And I'm pointing to one person, but another person is the husband in the natural, right? And I was like, God, what? Because I know what I saw. I saw, I saw a soul tie, a union, a oneness. That's what I saw. Well, I wasn't wrong. But I felt foolish in the moment. Later on, I found out I wasn't wrong. I saw what I saw. It's just that that's not who the paperwork was with. See, listen, I had to learn that on this journey, if we're really going to get where God is taking us, we've got to get out of our own understanding. Sometimes it ain't about our understanding. Sometimes it's not about us getting it. God knows exactly what he's doing with every word that is spoken. And so it is simply our job to release the word and release it. Great morning, Corey. Hey, Christina. Hey, Kareen. Hey, Jackie. Hey, Summerlin. Yes, April, not our understanding. Angel number 122. So when God began to speak to me about the launch for the month of June and the things that were getting ready to happen, I said, okay, God. Okay, so I put my post up this morning. Y'all know I normally don't do that, but I put the post up this morning. And then I said, well, God, what is it that you want me to say to your people? See, because listen, what I never want to do is get so caught up in what I think I'm supposed to say that I don't say what he needs me to say. And right now, this tethering is this thing right here. This thing right here is on me. And I think it's because so often we find ourselves tethered to people, places, and situations that we're not supposed to be tethered to any longer. I'm not saying that we were never supposed to be tethered there. We were, but the time is up. The season is up. And we have a problem with letting go of things and letting go of people and letting go of situations and letting go of circumstances. We have a problem with doing that because we think that everything is forever and everything is not forever, not in the form that we see it right now. It's time to cut the tethers. You don't need the tether for your safety. God is your safety. You don't need the tether for your security. God is your security. Like if you venture beyond a certain point, God still got you. And he needs you to venture beyond that point because right now you're limited. It's time to cut the tethers. But the question becomes, God, which tethers do I cut? Which tethers? Which tethers do I cut? Which tethers do I eliminate from my life? What? Listen. Some of you, God has told you to cut tethers and you haven't because you're afraid. You're afraid that you won't make it. You won't be able to survive. You're afraid that you're going to get buck wild. You're going to go wild. You won't be able to return to God. But you've got a false sense of security. You got a false sense of security. So your security is in the tether, not in the God that you serve. Your security is in the tether and not in your ability to listen to God and to follow God. Your security is in the tether. See, God didn't create tethers for them to be our security. He created them to provide us with a sense of security while we needed it. But at some point, the tether must be cut in order for you to get to your destiny. How long will you maintain your tether to something or someone or someplace because you think that's the only way that you are able to stay connected? It's the only way, but it's not. Luke said, you prophesied to me, and all I can say is it surely came to pass. God will use a foolish thing to confound the wise. Yes, I prophesied to Lou at the Church of Scientology at an event that the Church of Scientology hosted to celebrate volunteers, I think it was. Y'all remember I told y'all about God sending me over there to the Church of Scientology, telling me he was going to show me some things while I was a speaker at an event. And I was up in there prophesying left and right, honey. I need y'all to know that wherever I go, God is with me, honey, and he's going to show up. We've got to understand that, look, it's not that you weren't supposed to be there. It's not that you weren't supposed to be connected. That's not it. And if I could share anything with you all, it would be the power of disconnecting properly. See, sometimes the disconnect is supposed to happen, but we don't do it properly because we don't know how. We don't know how to cut the tether without cutting the people. We don't know how to cut the tether without cutting the people. Now listen, you can cut the tether and not cut the people. It's possible. You can do it. So when God tells you it's time to cut the tether, that don't mean cut the people up. That don't mean that. So when we understand that and we can understand, okay, look at it like this, okay? My husband often says that I'm like the watermelon effect, okay? What is the watermelon effect, Dr. V? You can't just thump me to see what's inside. You're not going to know. You're not going to know until the watermelon is cut open. Then you can find out truly whether or not the watermelon is good, whether or not it's sweet, whether or not that's when you know when you got a good water, because it can look good on the outside. It can sound good to the thump, but when you cut it open, you discover it ain't sweet. Have you ever had your mouth fixed for some good sweet watermelon? You thumped it and it sounded good. You looked at it and it looked good. It was big. It looked like it was juicy. Listen, and then you cut it only to discover it didn't have no taste. So he says that that's how I am. People don't really know what's inside of me. I don't look necessarily like I'm ripe. I don't look like the sweet watermelon. I don't look like the anointing resides on me the way it does. I don't look like it because we have these conceptions of what it's supposed to look like. The package is supposed to come in, the things that the package has gone through. Like we have these ideas and these notions that keep us tethered to lies and misconceptions. So we miss the blessing of God because it looks foolish to us when he desires to use the foolish things to confound the wise. Because we can't be wise in our own minds, right? That watermelon effect. So when you cut the watermelon, okay, when you cut the watermelon, you taste it and you discover, ooh, that's sweet, right? So listen, there's a seasoning called Tajin. Tajin seasoning is kind of a spicy seasoning that can have a lime twist to it. And when you put it on the watermelon, it makes a whole flavor explosion in your mouth, right? I remember when I was introduced to it, I was like, come on now, it can't be that good, baby. But I tried it and I know for myself how good it is. So when I was sharing with my husband about it, he was like, well, I really don't eat watermelon anymore because when I was growing up, I lived across the street from a watermelon field and we would go over there and we would eat the watermelon and we would just sit there and eat for about an hour. He said, I did it so much for my teenage years that it made me not want watermelon. Baby, I had some watermelon in here with the seasoning on it. He came in here and he tried it. Next thing I know, he had to bring a plate for me to give him some. And I had a big bowl of watermelon. And I was going to eat every bit of it, okay? By myself with my Tajin seasoning. Now, the Tajin seasoning is outside of what we normally think of. Yeah, we hear people putting salt on watermelon, right? Because it gives it that salty, sweet taste. It gives it that kick, brings out the flavor, right? But you may never have heard of this Tajin seasoning and using it on your watermelon. Actually, it's good on all fruit. It just like there's a whole flavor explosion in your mouth, right? So last night, our cousin came over and he brought me some oxtails, which were fire, by the way. Let me tell you something. Oxtails, rice, and cabbage. Baby, it was so good. Okay. So I finished my class and he came while I was still doing it. And when I got off, he brought it in to me and I was able to eat it. It was good. So my husband came in here and got my Tajin because it was in my office on my desk because that's where I was eating my watermelon last. And I said, where you going with that? Hold on, what you finna do? Because I felt like he was going to go get some of my watermelon because when I bought it, he didn't eat it. So I go in there and, we're talking. And after I eat the oxtails and share with my husband, because I did share. It was hard, but I shared. My husband cut some watermelon and, I let him taste it. He put the Tajin seasoning on it and he was like, what? And he was eating the part down by the rind. He wasn't even in the sweet part because he don't like seeds. I don't care. I spit the seeds out, okay? And he was like, what? He said, no, I know you playing. I know you playing. In the words of April, he would have been saying, I know you lying. This don't taste this good. But it did, and he was blown away by it. Listen, let me tell y'all something. When you begin to cut the tethers, people who never knew you tasted so good are going to get the opportunity to experience your anointing with a little Tajin seasoning. There's going to be a flavor explosion. You're going to be able to take off, blast off in a way that you didn't even know was possible because you were so accustomed to being tethered that you didn't know what it was like in the outer realm, the outer dimensions. You only knew the safety of the confines that the tether would allow you to get to. But I'm trying to tell you, God is trying to take you to a place that you've never been. A place where there are no tethers and he becomes your tether and you are tethered to him and him only. Like he is your safety. He is your security. There is no security blanket. You just got him and he is more than enough. But it's going to require a level of faith that you haven't been operating in. It's time to cut the tethers. It's time to cut the tethers. And when you do, your blast off is going to be amazing. And you're going to discover some things about him that you didn't know. because you've been busy listening to everybody else's version of him or everybody else's understanding of him. He really just desires to talk to you for himself. He desires to share the deep mysteries with you. It's time to cut the tethers. Tethers to what you're familiar with, tethers to what you know. It's time to cut the tethers so that you can really get the revelation that God desires to give you. And you can learn to trust his voice in your life. I find myself in a peculiar place. And I say a peculiar place because it's not a place I've been before. I've gone through a lot of changes, a lot of transitions, but I'm in a place I've never been before. And the beautiful but scary thing about the place that I'm in is that it has required me to let go of my preconceived notions about some things, my preconceived notions about God, about his word, about what he's saying. It's requiring me to let go of the things that I've always been told and taught, to dig deeper and to allow him to speak. There's a song, and in the song it says, "Speak to my heart, Lord. Speak to my heart, Lord." And in the song, hold on. It says, and it's Donnie McClurkin. It says, there's a part that says, "Speak to my heart, Lord. Give me your holy word. If I can't hear from you, if I can't hear from you, if I can hear from you, then I'll know what to do. I won't go on, never go on my own. Just let your spirit guide and let your word abide. Speak to my heart, Lord." I would contend that this is a season where instead of relying on the tether, that you rely on God, that you rely on him and his word and him speaking to you and him telling you what to do. Because people can tell you what they know. Even prophetically, we know in part and we prophesy in part, right? But God knows all. And because he knows all, he knows exactly what he's doing, when he's doing it, and how he's doing it. But there's some things we got to cut. I normally have a routine that I do in the morning. And this morning, God disrupted my routine. He got me up early. And I came in here and I was working. And my husband called me and was like, "Where my wife?" And I said, "Babe, I'm in here writing. I'll come back in there." And I go back in and I laid down for a minute and I got back up. But disruption is not a bad thing. Allow God to disrupt you. so that he can show you what it is that he desires to show you, so that you can get what it is that he has for you, and you can know what it is that he desires for you to know. Let God speak to your heart and give the revelation required. Let him tell you what to cut, what tethers to cut, where the disconnects are required. And then trust that he has a plan. It doesn't always feel good. It won't feel good, especially not if you're the type of person that wants to know, what am I doing? What's next? Baby, but those tethers allow you to move freely. When God cut the tether of me being tied to a home in Tampa, it allowed me to go wherever I needed to go and be wherever I needed to be when I needed to be there. When he cut the tether of a job in a physical location, it allowed me to be able to move and flow with God. When he cut the tethers of me having to be responsible for my children on a daily basis, like, it allowed me to be able to move and go and do. It allowed me to be moved and shifted and to maneuver and to not be stressed and to find my way to a place where God took me through an entire healing process, and moved me geographically time after time after time, until my husband found me. But because I was untethered, I didn't have to worry about, well, what am I going to do about my place? And what am I going to do about my job? And what am I going to do about this? And what am I going to do about that? So instead of despising the untethering, instead of despising not being tethered, honor it, because it's going to give you the freedom for God to truly do what it is he desires to do in your life and put you where he desires for you to be, when he desires for you to be there. Yes, tethers represent safety, but the greatest safety you can have is in his arms. Don't miss what God is trying to do in your life, because you want security. You want what you know. Allow the unknown to show up, to give you the opportunity to discover the things that you need to discover about God, about you, about people, about life. This is an untethering season, but it's for your good and not for your harm. It's not that God doesn't want you to have security or safety. It's that he wants to be your security and your safety. Let him. He won't fail you. I promise you he won't. I pray that this word blessed you. I pray that you got something that you desperately needed. I pray that you heard the voice of God speak directly to you and your situation and your circumstances in a way that only he can. Don't be so busy being tethered that you miss what God is doing. Listen, two things. First, y'all, I'm so excited about my daddy's book as I'm doing the final touches and pulling everything together, baby. I get even more excited about it, right? His story is one that I absolutely love, and I feel honored that I get to help him tell it. It's not a story of perfection. It's a story of overcoming. It's a story of victory. It's the story of being untethered, that you might be tethered to the Father. So if you haven't pre-ordered your copy of the book, go to bit.ly/silent cry, pre-order, bit.ly/silent cry, pre-order, and order your copy of the book. Additionally, go do that. Additionally, if this word blessed you and you want to sow a seed, you can go to Cash App $DRV Johnson 777, Cash App $DRV Johnson 777. If you need my Venmo, if you need my Zelle, let me know and I can give you that. But Be obedient and do what the Lord says do. Hey, Patrick, how you doing? Charlie, yes, he is more than enough. Hey, Dr. Betts. Kareem, yes. Yeah, girl, I'm speaking to me too. Okay. Look, you guys, I pray that the word blessed you, and I pray that you have an amazing and incredible day. Listen, know this, that I love you to life and life more abundant. Don't stop. Don't stop. Keep going. Cut the tethers where it's required to be cut and move the way God needs you to move. I love you all. Be blessed. Mwah.